Hello everybody and welcome back to The Pale Thread. I am Kat Martin. I am your host as usual. I am going to cover a story today that I haven't seen pretty much anywhere. I do have my sources listed below if ever you want to dig in a bit deeper, but today we're going to cover the very scary story of Great Britain's serial killer Stephen Akinmurele. He was a 20-year-old man who was apparently fascinated with hurting the vulnerable. So, together, let's pull this thread and see where it leads us. Stephen Akinmurele was born on March 16th, 1978. He was born in Nigeria of a Nigerian father and a mother that was from Isle of Man. He lived in Nigeria until he was 10, and then they moved to Isle of Man, him and his mother. It's unclear if the father also followed, but they went back to where his mother was from, so Isle of Man, until he was 18, and then he went to Blackpool. So he grew up with apparently a very severe grandmother. She was a disciplinarian in the home, and it kind of brewed something in him, having to face a stern grandmother all of his childhood. And we'll learn a bit more later on why he went from Isle of Man to Blackpool. But during his high school years, he got in more and more trouble with the law, and the more he got in trouble, the more severe his grandmother became. So like I said, he was living in Isle of Man. Isle of Man is a small island between Ireland and Great Britain. It is in the Irish Sea, and Blackpool is not too far from there. But it might have been also quite a bit of a shock when he was 10 years old and he went from Nigeria, a mainly black community of over 230 million people, to a small island where the main ethnicity is Caucasian. So I don't know if that also created a shock within him, but he became more and more frustrated with life. We know that he went from Isle of Man to Blackpool to pursue a bartending career. He was doing that, and he was also working in a benefits office. I'm not sure exactly what that represents, what the equivalent would be here. I'm from Canada, so I don't know in Britain what that means, but he was doing both jobs, but he became very popular in the bar industry. He was working in a very popular bar called Rumors, and Stephen was a good-looking, very athletic man, and he was apparently very popular with the ladies. What has also been said later on is that he was also quite popular in the gay scene. So apparently he was bisexual. There's no, allegedly he was bisexual. And Nigeria has very, very severe laws when it comes to homosexuality. So in Wikipedia, it says, both male and female expressions of homosexuality are illegal in Nigeria and punishable by up to 14 years in prison. There is no legal protection for the LGBTQ people in Nigeria. So if he was gay or bisexual and felt shame about that, that could have also bubbled up some frustrations within Stephen. He was also known for being quite aggressive towards older ladies. Way before he murdered anyone, he apparently had threatened multiple older ladies within his community in the Isle of Man. So it's not completely out of the blue for him to do something like that. There was clearly something wrong with him. So the first time that police actually gave attention to Stephen is because his two first confirmed victims were an elderly couple, Eric and Joan Brodman. He was 77, she was 74, and they were found in their home brutally attacked. They were found by their own daughter, Marilyn. And the way they were found is she describes it as walking into her parents' home and seeing her father's body. She didn't see the face, she didn't see exactly who it was, but she deducted that it was her father. And he was in a hallway, laying down, of course. She could see his feet and his shoes and a bit of his pants. And there was a wardrobe that had fallen onto him, but she couldn't see her mother, so she started looking around the house to see where her mother was, calling out her name, and then she thought maybe she was in the laundry room. So she tried pushing her way into into the laundry room, but something was blocking the door. So when she was finally able to peek in the laundry room, she saw that there was a pile of clothes that was blocking her way. So she started trying to move things, and by removing the top layer, she saw her mother's arm. So she knew immediately that both of her parents were gone. She describes her parents as a quiet, lovely, in-love couple. Joan was a bit more outgoing than her father. Her father was a shrimp man and also an electrician, and they had such a great dynamic that Joan would often follow Eric into his little work days. So she would follow him on the boat, and they would go together to basically fish for shrimp. She wanted to know how to do that. She wanted to do the same thing. So she got her full fishing permit, which is quite unrare. And she was actually the first woman in her entire area to get it. And she describes her mother as sweet. The neighbors described them as such a lovely couple. He was more on the quiet side. He also, like I said, he was an electrician. He would take Marilyn's mom, so Joan, onto work sites, and she would crawl into spaces where he couldn't fit. And so that whole story really kind of warmed my heart. But police officers, when they get there, they realize that there was a struggle. So they figured that probably Joan was the first person attacked, strangled, and I'd like to mention that strangling is usually I know that all murder is aggressive, but it's usually a very personal, very rage-filled crime, because not only is it really close, but it takes a ton of energy. Apparently, I think it takes about 4 minutes to actually strangle someone, and holding such power onto someone's body is really, really exhausting. So he strangled Joan, and then he had brought with him what they call a kosh. And what that is a sock in which Stephen had put multiple big batteries together and taped it with white masking tape, and had put in the sock and could attack someone with it. Swing it, do some harm. And that's what happened to Eric. So they think that Stephen had strangled Joan and left her maybe at the bottom of the stairs so that Eric would see her and come trying to help, and then Stephen would come and attack Eric. And that's what happened. So Stephen attacked Eric with the kosh and left him for dead, basically, and thought that he was all set. Most likely he turned around and started walking away, and Eric actually got up. He was 77 years old, but he put up a fight. And they think that for some reason, Stephen then took a wardrobe that he found somewhere, brought it, and kind of threw it over Eric. So I don't know if it's because he's trying to make it look like an accident, but that's really dumb. But I think he was flustered. I think he was flustered because he left the kosh there. And yes, it's hard to get prints off a sock, but he forgot that he put his hands on the batteries. So police were able to get some prints off of that. They were also able to get palm prints off of the stairwell. Because Eric got attacked at the bottom of the stairs, and when he got up and attacked Stephen by self-defense, basically, Stephen decided that the kosh was not enough. And once he was able to put his victim back on the ground, he actually stepped on his throat and crushed his airways. Now, he wanted to make sure that Eric was not going to get up again, so not only did he put his own weight onto the throat, but he also held on to the rail of the stairs that was in front of him to give him some leverage. And they were able to pull the palm prints off of that stairwell, which is amazing. The police really did an amazing job on this case. So they run the prints and they figure out who they belong to. Of course, the community was shattered, not only because, it's scary to learn that a couple has been murdered, an elderly couple, that's a vicious person who's able to do that. So the community was really worried because they knew Boardmans, and they were such lovely people that there was a good understanding that this was random. This whole ordeal happened on October 30th, 1998. And Akinmurele was arrested on November 1st. So only 2 days later, they were able to do this really quickly, identify their guy, and get him. So when they went to get him, they faced someone they weren't ready to face, in the sense that it was very eerie. When they got to Akinmurele's home, he was having lunch, so he was sitting on the couch, and he wasn't scared, he wasn't startled, he wasn't confused, he wasn't asking questions. The only question he asked was, "Can I finish my chips?" So here we call them fries. He looked at the police officers and said, "Before I go with you guys, can I finish my chips?" And the guys were like, No. So they took him in, and he was unemotional the entire time. He did deny being involved. He did say that he was in the area that day and that he saw the police activity, but he had no involvement. And that's when they had kind of the idea of tricking him into basically giving them probable cause for arresting him. So after he said he was in the area, they asked, "Have you ever been in their home?" And he says, no, never been inside that house, which for them is a great answer because they know for a fact that he was in the house. So automatically, this is great for the police because then they can question, then why are you lying? We found your prints. We know for a fact you were inside, so what are you trying to hide? So they bring him back to his cell, and he says that he's done for the day and he might talk the next day. And next day he did. They meet up with him again the next day, and he gives them an account of another murder he did a couple weeks prior to the Boardmans. He confirms that in 1998 he attacked an older lady named Jemima Cargill. She was 75 years old, and she had been his landlady, and police had ruled her death as accidental. He had set fire to the house after strangling her, and basically they figured it was an accident. Not long after the fire, though, police had doubts about this being an accident, and they suspected arson. And then when Akinmurele confessed, they connected both and confirmed that it was indeed a murder. Now, he was on a roll. He was talking. He had no emotion, so I'm guessing he was like, "Hey, I'm already there. They got me for this one. I'm going down for a long time anyways, so might as well, So he started talking about his time in Isle of Man. And apparently, Stephen had started his killing career pretty early, when he was 18. His first known victims were Dorothy Harris, she was a 78-year-old woman, and Marjorie Ashton, who was 72. Dorothy was found dead in her home in 1996 after a house fire, and no one had suspected again that it was anything other than an accident. And then for Marjorie, he had stalked her. He waited for the perfect moment, and he attacked her in her home. He did not set fire to that house, but it was clear that he liked vulnerable victims, basically going for elderly ladies. I understand that there's a lot that, points to him hating his grandmother, and that's why he goes towards elderly people, but I do think that he's kind of a coward as well. Dorothy was part blind, part deaf, and he still attacked her. Pick on someone your own size. I have a really sweet spot for old people, and honestly, it breaks my heart to think that someone who is, in the last stretch of their lives, it should be peaceful, it should be calm, and then an asshole like that walks in and decides that he's going to take your last years. It's just, and you pass terrified. You die completely terrified, and I think it's the most cowardly thing you can do. He also, during his second interview, basically the next day that he was arrested, so on November 2nd, he also started kind of confessing to things that they think he might not have done. The reason why they think he didn't do those murders or he didn't actually do this is because he was trying to set them off the scent of old people. So in there, he was mixing any type of victim that he would have attacked. But it's pretty clear that the only ones that they were able to prove were old people. So he actually had a lot of anger and I think a lot of shame, internal shame, and he took it out on people who wouldn't fight back. Good for Eric for fighting back, honestly. He said that he killed a rambler on Isle of Man and that he buried his body facing a cliff overlooking the sea. But when they went there, they did extensive excavation and they found nothing. They did find a gun that had his prints on them, but they never found a body. So not sure exactly what that is about, but yeah, he tried mixing in some other victims throughout his confession, but they don't think he actually did all that. I wouldn't be surprised if he had other victims, but I don't think that they're anything other than old people. Detective Superintendent Bob Denmark said that he has interviewed a lot of criminals in his life, and he said that, quote, "I've met many criminals in my time, but he is one of the most dangerous men I've ever encountered." And people who knew him personally at work, at the bar where he worked, people who had met him throughout his life describe him as someone that is non-problematic, not violent. He was actually quite charming. People got along with him quite well. And like I said, he was super popular in bars. He didn't have any issues picking up women or men. And then you have this kind of Jekyll and Hyde thing that creeps me out. You never know who you actually know, and that's terrifying to me. I think he was terrified about the trial. I'm not Einstein for thinking that, because he was in custody in Manchester prison, and just a couple weeks before his trial, he committed suicide. He had tried twice before to take his own life, and so he was on suicide watch pretty much the whole time that he was there. And they took him into a special section, and he was on, very severe watch. And then they brought him back to his initial cell, and his girlfriend, wonder why this douche has a girlfriend, her name was Amanda Fitch, and she had warned the prison people that he had said very openly that he wanted to take his own life. So even though they had brought him back to his cell, he was still on suicide watch. But 2 weeks before his appearance in court, he hung himself. He did leave a suicide note that goes as follows. "I know it's not right, always thinking like this, but it's always on my mind. I can't help the way I feel. What I did was wrong, I know that, and I feel for them. But it doesn't mean I won't do it again. I'll keep on having this feeling. I'm going mad because I can't take any more of this. And that's why I'm saying goodbye." He also had written to his mother. He confessed, and he said, "I couldn't take any more of feeling like this, always wanted to kill." So it does show not remorse, because I don't think he actually cares. It does prove some awareness, where he says that, he knows it's wrong, which completely, blocks him from insanity plea or whatnot. Although some people had reported seeing him talking to himself on the beach and screaming at himself. So I don't know what level of mental health issues he had, but I do think he knew that what he was doing was wrong. Although he had really strange habits. When he killed Marjorie, he stayed in her home, made himself some food, which kind of speaks to the fact that he's not very stressed about it. It's not like someone who goes in and does a kill and then is super nervous and just leaves because they need to be out of the way as soon as possible. He stayed and had snacks. It's just weird. Anyways, in the wake of his death, they reopened 10 cases that were cold. They're going through that. I haven't seen any results from those investigations, but with his death, it kind of, it could confirm information, but you won't be able to bring the person to justice because he took the cowardly way out. And it's so weird because he's obviously a serial killer. He's killed at least 5 people, confirmed. By the way, he was never going to be prosecuted for the 2 murders in Isle of Man. Because of a technicality, he was kind of cleared, and he couldn't be prosecuted for them. If he had stayed alive, he would have been prosecuted for the 3 murders in Blackpool. In this case, I think you can ask yourself, nature versus nurture. And to me, there's always a bit of it, not every time. That I do think that some people are born evil, and I'm sorry if that rubs anyone the wrong way. I do think that some people are born evil, and I guess their environment can help them be a little less evil, a bit more evil. I do think that Stephen Akinmurele is not a result of his nurturing. I think that there was something within him that needed to kill, and I think that the fact that his grandmother was mean to him, he used that excuse to prey on people that didn't deserve it. I'll say it again, I think he was a huge coward. Tell me what you think. I hope I see you in the next video. I hope I get to interact with you in the comments below. And in the meantime, stay curious, stay safe.